And we're good.
And we're live. It is RAGIN, and we've got a special guest tonight, Daphne Lage. She's been on here a couple of times.
Yeah,
but before we introduce her, we've got her little intro. Hold on. We'll be right back. Good evening. I swear that timer makes me so excited. Oh my gosh. I'm going to drop the card here. Hey, Daphne.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool intro. Yeah.
Thank you.
Although I missed the voices of the gremlins.
So, right? They are going to come back eventually.
What's
What's up, Daphne?
Oh, good. Busy. A lot busier than I was expecting to be.
No, I mean, for a little while you had like campaigns back to back, and now you're kind of going solo campaign. We're going to talk about that, but for those who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure.
I'm going to put you in the
okay.
There you go.
There we go. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So, hello. My name is Daphne Lage, and I am a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And I am known for the funny animal fantasy Tall Tales. This is my main book here. And currently, I am also known for my other series, the fantasy drama Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, now currently on Kickstarter for issue 1 and issue 2. You can read both my comics online at Tall Tales, TILS online.com, and egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. And you can check out all of my videos on how I make my comics on YouTube at Daphne Lage, Lage Art.
Awesome. You know what? I'm going to segue back to your book because I saw a sketch that was a little bit racy. And I know I do want to get to that.
Okay, yeah, we can do that too.
I do want to get to that. But I do want to say hello to Joe D. McPhee,
hey,
Raging
Joe.
with the Teenager. And
hello.
Trish is tuning in. Hello, beautiful. Right
it's
back
the lighting, I swear. People really underestimate the power of good lighting.
You know what? For me, it's like the Asian genes, I tell you, because I'm going to look like this. And then overnight, boom, I'm going to look like a Shar-Pei.
Right.
So it'll be like, it's like, hold on a second. Let me lift up my wrinkles. But now, you know what? Some of the things I don't think people realize that because like with Rage, we talk a little bit about nothing and everything, but mostly nothing. I mean, that's kind of like our tagline, right? And so Nita and I have been kind of doing our health thing. We are accountability partners and stuff like that.
That's good to do.
You are a runner, yes?
Yeah, a slow one, but long distance. Yes, a slow, long distance runner. But
like, why are you running when nobody's chasing you, woman?
Well, I mean, what's funny is that it was. I was kind of dabbling in it, like I think it was like around like early 2013, and then the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And what's funny is that at the job that I was at, we had several people running that race. So everyone was freaking out because we couldn't account for anybody, but they were fine. They were fine. They but and then it's like I started thinking, it's like, oh, if I don't really start doing this, the terrorists will win. I mean, it was really like that.
Yeah, that mindset.
and then it's like, well, okay, so I can do a 15-minute mile, but at least I'm running.
Right. Yeah. My husband's joke is that like I go running and it's just like I'm beating myself up, you know?
Right.
But the last time I ran, I threw up in front of the neighbor.
Yeah,
I know your neighbor gets the show.
No.
Well, you know what? And I kind of wanted to segue into like, how are you staying healthy
Oh,
with
wow.
this back-to-back campaign, and then now you can kind of focus on Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn 1 and 2, which is on Kickstarter.
Yes, exactly.
How are you doing that? Because we know from watching you on other shows, you really try not to hit the F5 button, but
Right.
you are an illustrator,
Yeah.
you are an artist, and you have commissions up the
writer.
wazoo. You have a writer, you have projects all over the place. When do you get away from your desk?
Well,
Never.
one of the things that I do, because it is tough. I mean, what's funny is that especially since today I found out that the artist for Berserk just passed at 54. And what a lot of people are saying is that it's the stress of working on the book, that on his book that he's been working on since the 80s is what did it. I mean, the Japanese work ethic is lethal. That there's a literal word for it in Japanese for it.
Oh.
And I was watching on Twitter a lot of like professional manga artists getting like completely inundated with their fans going, "Are you okay? Are you sleeping? Are you, taking breaks?" And blah, blah. So it's really important to do that. And so I make sure that I stick to a reasonable schedule. Like I need my sleep. So it's like I'm not pulling all-nighters. I mean, like I'm just like really basic with that. It's like I have my Fitbit. It tells me to get up, it's like, oh, you didn't do your 250 steps this hour. So, and the thing is, and it's like, I have an ergonomic chair, but if you're in it all day, your butt still hurts. So the idea is just to make these deliberate, the deliberate effort to get up and move. I mean, the work is still going to be there, but it's like, if my butt's not hurting because I'm sitting all day, I can do more work. So it's very beneficial to take the breaks, and then it's like the whole thing with, making sure that, I'm taking care of my hands and like, it's a whole thing. Who knew that being creative would be like probably more injury inducing than the actual running that I do.
No, seriously. I mean, the last thing that I think about when I'm walking from my desk is, oh, my ass, and it's not for a good reason.
Right, exactly. It's not the fun. It's not the fun times.
But that's because of the longevity of what you've been doing, and you have, I hope that you haven't hurt yourself. A lot of people get with the wrists and the neck, the back.
Yeah, I have a friend who she ended up, a convention friend. I mean, I think I only met her in the physical space once, but she actually had to stop drawing because she ended up with such severe nerve damage in her arms.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like, Nita, I mean, you might have heard of her. It's Dark Sours. She does a book called Codename Hunter. And it's like, and she had to stop doing her book, and she does gorgeous work because she can't use her arms, literally. I mean, what's funny is that she transitioned into making YouTube videos for like children's programming for the library she works at. So she just, positioned herself in a different creative outlet. But I mean, that's serious. I mean, like I said, the artist for Berserk, his heart literally fell apart.
And there are people who, like my mother is a firm believer that if you love what you do, you're going to work, and it doesn't feel like work. And then the day you retire, she's like, then you die the next day. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Really, I swear.
But the thing is that the statistics bear that out. It's like the worst thing that you could do is retire with nothing to do.
Yes.
Exactly. and that's actually the part that kills people. It's the nothing to do, because I mean, for what I do, I'm working for myself. These are my books. I mean, it's not like I'm doing comics for somebody else, in terms of like another company. I mean, technically I'm doing work for JD, but that's like our stuff. So that's different. But so these are all my projects. So there's no technically reason for me to retire. so I mean, it's like, what's funny is that there isn't even a reason for me to kind of like end my day. It's like, it's like I make sure to get up and do things and whatnot, but pretty much it's like I start, working on stuff from the moment I get up to the moment I get to bed, because I kind of don't want to stop. And there are nights that I get mad that I have to stop, because I'm so in the groove. But again, I'm not going to stay up till 1 a.m. Right. I mean, it's very rare that I do that. It's like that's not a regular thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hello. Who do we have here over here? We've got quite a few people who are tuning in.
Oh,
Sean
good,
Washington.
Good. Hello.
Does say quality sleep is
It
precious.
really is. It really is. I forgot the artist. He's another mangaka who he got I think he was like, he worked with Tezuka and all these other manga artists, and he said that for his entire career he made it a point to get 8 hours of sleep. Like, he did not pull all-nighters or anything, and he would get and he would get teased and badgered for that, but then he sits back and he goes, yeah, but I'm the only one left alive now. So
yeah,
who's laughing?
We're gonna drop dead real soon, Meredith.
Oh boy.
No. Well, I mean, it's the one guaranteed thing in life, right?
Well, death and taxes.
Right. I don't want to talk about taxes.
Right.
I just did mine, so it was like, oh gosh, yeah. We need to have a tax talk one of these days. Have some people who've been in the industry.
Yeah.
That would be
an amazing talk. Yeah.
So I want to talk about Egoworks. I mean, that's kind of been in your realm for a long time. Like, how did that form? What's it doing? Where's it going?
Oh, well, okay. So Egoworks is my main portfolio site. And gosh, it's like I can't. I think I might have set that up maybe in high school, maybe at the very end of high school or the beginning of college. I mean,
really?
that's how long I've had the Egoworks. And what's funny is that Egoraven herself started off as a mascot for the website. So yeah, it's like she was just a random self-insert character, the mascot of my portfolio, pretty much, as she started off as. I mean, so that's, so Egoworks is also a play on her name, Egoraven, and so they're kind of together like that. And it's my main portfolio site. It's where you can read. I was uploading the original iteration of Egoraven on the website in black and white all these years, because that was my hobby comic, while Tall Tales was my main, job comic. And it's also where I put up all my other artwork, my commissions, my like convention sketches, my just like I said, it's a portfolio. It's kind of a portfolio. So pretty much you can find, if you really wanted to get a sense of the type of work that I do, that's it. That's the website to go. Tall Tales is just very specific to Tall Tales, but Egoworks is not only just my comic work, but all my pinups and all that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's also where you can find all links to everything else too, like my DeviantArt page and the Facebook and all that. So it's literally a hub for my work.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting ready to pull up your campaign here. Hold on a second. Make sure I hit the share audio, because you do have a video.
Yes.
Up there that we can.
Yeah, I had gotten a new computer, and to be able to edit that video in spectacular time was really good.
Now you've got 12 days ago. You're almost at 1,000, at 3,000.
Yeah,
76 backers. It's like, wait a minute. What we need to get to? What was that backer
35 goal? The backer goal is 134, because 133 was the backers I had on issue 1.
Mm-hmm.
But the the stretch goal that we're closer to is the 3,500 mark, where everyone gets a print that I made on the launch party stream. Mm-hmm. So the original is already claimed because I raffled that off on the stream, but everyone gets a print, including the digital backers. You get a PDF of it.
Oh, nice. Wow. Well, if you guys can hold on a second. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I? What tab am I in? Nita, you didn't remind me of the 15-minute mark.
Oh, do it.
We'll be right back. We're gonna have this little tiny break, and then we're gonna come back and we're going to play Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn 1 and 2 video over on Kickstarter. Make sure that you head over there and give it some love. If you can't support it, or if you already did, make sure you share it out. Yeah. And while you're sharing things, share this video. All right, we'll be right back. Wrong one.
Dang it, Mary.
We're so happy to have Mike Jimmy doing a launch party with us. It's going to be so much fun. Cool. And he made, well, I think, let me put this up. So he made the little dude snorkeling.
Yeah, that's really
which was kind of cute. We were like, oh my gosh.
We were going to bed. That is the stream I got booted into jail from.
Really? Oh,
yeah. We were going to bed, and I picked over, and I was like,
"Boo!"
Yeah, I was like, "Holy shit, Meredith, come see what Mike's drawing right now!" And there it was, and it was like, "Oh,
Facebook hates our friends."
Yeah, I won't threaten you in text anymore, Meredith. I'm only going to threaten you with my words up my lips.
Well, but that's why you're in Facebook. Well, yeah. Your words are what got you in Facebook
jail.
The
words are what got her in Facebook jail anyway. My abusive relationship. But no, we're good. We're good. So we're going to play this video. But let me tell you something. We were at the launch party, and it was so neat, Daphne, to see you. Because the people who were tuning in,
can't imagine how excited you were.
Exactly. The people who were tuning in, like Nita and I, we were in the back of another StreamYard because that's what we do. We talk, we work at the same time. And she's like, oh my gosh, you got another one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was trippy.
Milestones. And when you hit goal,
just it was like, holy shit.
Like we were screaming and you were like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, because on my first campaign, it took about 24 hours just to make $500. So and here I was making 1,000 in 3 hours, and now it's like I'm almost at 3, and it's like, oh, okay.
But that's one of the things that
but
I appreciate that so much because there was a certain amount of humbleness that I saw that I was just like, oh my gosh, I am rooting for you because, as a creator, when we see people who are supporting us in those endeavors, instead of being like, yeah, of course, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it still surprises me. I mean, because even the Tall Tales campaign that we had before this for Thieves Quest Volume 1, it's the most backers we've had on a Tall Tales project. So I mean, so obviously whatever I started doing at the beginning of the year is working.
Yeah.
But still, it's kind of amazing that it's like, like I said, I've been doing this since 1992, but to this day, I'm still like, wow, people want to read my stuff.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think this is a beautiful story, and we're going to hit the play button right now.
The Continuing Adventures of Egoraven returns to Kickstarter. Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, Issue 2, continues with Egoraven, a half-unicorn, half-human princess, exiled from her enchanted homeland Edenron, and forced into Turnum, one of the outer kingdoms of men. Joined by her unicorn uncle Amadeo, they attempt to escape the treachery of the elf prince Rullian, the traitorous unicorn queen Lilith, and their deadly bargain with the dragon lords. After almost being captured, They are rescued by the horseman Johar Amir El Sahar. Hearing their story, Johar invites Egoraven and Amadeo back with him into the city of Dornum, where they are introduced to a mortal world that does not take too kindly to magical creatures leaving the confines of their valley. Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, is a 32-page full-color medieval fantasy soap opera drama in the style of the Chronicles of Narnia and The Witcher. If you missed the first issue, don't worry. Catch-up levels are available in both digital and physical editions. There's also variant cover levels and add-ons, featuring a special variant by acclaimed My Little Pony artist Mary Bellamy. Also, help me break my backer goal of 133 supporters, and you'll also be entered to win an original sketch cover mock-up. So check out my campaign, and thank you so much for all of your support.
Pretty awesome.
Really awesome.
Now
you.
I read the first one. I have the first one. I was even able to review it before it went to print. And it is definitely a coming of age story, a powerful story, I think. And you see shades of nefarious deeds. You know, what can you tell us without giving it away? Tell us a little bit more about this story arc.
Well, okay. I guess to fill everybody in. So, Egoraven is a half unicorn, half human princess, living in Edoran, as the video said. It's the magical valley of elves and unicorns. And although she is a princess, she is not accepted by the elves or the unicorns themselves, who they actually kind of resent the half-breed offspring of their king stallion. And but because the elves have all but lost their own magic and depend on the unicorns to survive the world that they are in, the elfin royal family, they decide that an arranged marriage between Egoraven and the elf prince Brillian would strengthen the magic bond between them and reintroduce magic back into the elfin line. But Prince Brilliant has other ideas, and he has, along with Egoraven's stepmare Lilith, they form an alliance with the Dragon Lords, who overthrow his own ruling family and his ideas, of course, that he would take over. But they both find out the hard way that dragons don't share. So in the midst of all this chaos, Egoraven and her uncle Amadeo escape into the neighboring kingdoms of men. The neighboring, actually, it's like the main neighboring kingdom of Turnham. And it's the mortal world that they have never been in before. And now it's like, now they have to figure out how to live in that world in order, because coming back to the valley is completely out of the question. And so the second issue the second issue continues with Egoraven and Amadeo escaping into Turnham, and they are rescued by the horseman Johar, who comes across them. And after hearing their story, he invites them to the city that he lives in, Dornum, where he helps run a blacksmith forge with his two friends, Daniel and Morgan. And he says, like, well, for a couple of strong backs, I can offer, room, pretty much room and board in exchange for the help. So they go, screw it. We have what more could we lose at this point? And they're introduced via him to this new mortal world, and they find out that it's like people aren't really crazy to have these magical creatures that have the reputation of kidnapping humans for the elves, which is kind of the reason how the elves lost their magic, most of their magic to begin with. And they're not crazy about having these creatures mingle with them. But, so Egoraven and Amadeo have to kind of maneuver in this new world, trying to figure out, like, okay, what now?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where issue 2. Yeah. So that's kind of like the sum up of issue 1 and issue 2. But
how far are you? So have you written the entire story arc?
The entire story arc is done. There's a literal ending. I have the literal last line. So yeah, it's done. So I know where I'm going with the story. In fact, just a couple of days ago, I just did the thumbnail layouts to issue 8 because I'm trying to create this buffer for next year. So I literally so I'm trying to put together now the material for that's supposed to go through the end of next year. So yeah, so that's why I'm kind of like, bonkers right now with work, because I'm just trying to build, because also like this is the work I'm doing on top of Tall Tales. So so yeah, so I'm really, I got a couple of irons in the fire.
Now, how are you pacing yourself? Because you are going back and forth between the two projects plus whatever commissions and things like that.
Right.
How do you plan on pacing Egoraven out specifically for your audience and your fans?
Well, that's where Kickstarter comes in, because Kickstarter, well, I'm forcing myself to use Kickstarter as a scheduling device. So I literally have a calendar where I mapped out, okay, which book is going to come out on which month. And at the beginning of the year, I was incredibly ambitious with what I was hoping to do. And after that first issue and coming off of the Tall Tales trade, I'm learning, well, I learned really quickly that the schedule is actually not feasible for what I wanted to do. So I had to like rearrange a lot. Like I had to push some books to next year because it was just like even for the 3 days, I had 2 overlapping campaigns. I'm like going, no. I can't do this. It's like I cannot divide my attention between 2 books at the same time. So I had to rearrange my schedule, and by doing that, I have target dates for the books. So right now, now that I have the issue 1 and 2 campaign going, right now I'm really gunning to finish Tall Tales Tears of the Mother issue 6, because that campaign I have scheduled for July, and I'm not even done inking this thing yet. So so at least I have that focus, I have that target to focus myself to do the work. And then it's like I also simultaneously have issues 4 and 5. Issue 3 is flatted. Issue 4 is in the process of being flatted for color. And as I get pages in, I'm relettering everything. So once I have a 3 and 4, like all the flats done, then I'm just going to burn through them as one big project. So I get like 2 issues done at the same time, because what I want to do is before the end of the year, I want to proof I want to pretty much proof the trade before the end of the year, so that at least I know what the trade that's the parrot, sorry,
it finished the Cheetos.
Yeah, exactly. I want to proof the trade before the end of the year, so at least I have that done. I mean, that's how far in advance I want to get to this. But I'm using the Kickstarters as a target, because in the past it was conventions that did that for me. But we haven't had conventions for a year and a half now. So, but Kickstarter seems to be a better way for me to schedule myself. I'm just the type that I need a hard date. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? One of the things that I find very important, and one of the things that I learned from your example, is basically have the book done.
Yeah.
Have the book done before you kickstart.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because there's there's already a certain amount of stress when you're doing a campaign. You're chasing down interviews, you're trying to market yourself, you are trying to get the word out there and sell books, because, you know, like you said, Daphne, the convention scene
Yeah.
is kind of sort of opening, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of people who are like, right now they have to pick and choose which ones
Yeah.
they're going to, because they're all being scheduled towards the end of the year.
Mhm.
You know, and so it's really kind of like, all right, you got to hustle with the sales and the marketing, and then to add stress of finishing the book. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that
Right.
sounds like insanity. At what
Well,
point?
that's kind of what's happening to me, because, like I said, it's like I'm working on these tall tale pages now, and I'm like and I'm really trying to convince myself to, like, look, let's not go into the campaign still having to ink pages.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at what point did you learn that lesson? You're like, no, screw this, man. I want to finish books so I don't have to worry about it.
That was kind of like our thing from the very beginning when we started Kickstarter. That it was just, you know, because it's like, you know, sometimes other people serve as a lesson to others. You know, why make the mistake if you could watch other people make the mistake for you? And we saw what a lot of people were going through, because they were kickstarting the production of the book.
Right.
So, you know, like, they would do the campaign and then you wouldn't see the book for another 3 years. So, you know, we can't work that way. I mean, you can't, I mean, yeah. So it's like, especially with the amount of work that we have, yeah, you know, that's not feasible for us. So it's like, okay, well, we have all the work done. Here it is. So it's like, so the second the campaign, you know, finishes, within, you know, if we're extremely lucky, within 2 weeks of the campaign ending, we're getting books back. With the volume 1, it took a little bit longer, but we're getting the books by the end of the month, and then it's like, oh, there you go, right? And you know, we'll be sending out the books to that campaign the first week of June. So at least that way, campaign ends, we get the books printed, and then within 4 weeks, everyone's getting their books. And, you know, why make everybody wait?
Yeah. So I guess the other question that I had, because you are working steadily across this arc of your story with drawing.
Yeah.
Do you find that maybe some of your art choices and your style is changing as you go?
Yes, definitely.
So how are you going to battle that to keep the consistency, or are you kind of going with it?
Well, it's kind of both, because it's like the amount of work that I'm doing, there's going to be stylistic changes happening regardless of what I do. So that's just a given. That, you know, it's just that with this one, so with this book, the original 5 issues, like these first 2 issues, I probably did like almost 20 years ago. So the artwork is a little bit is a little different than what the type of work I'm doing now. But I really don't want to redo anything. You know, I'd rather just, you know, respect the artist that I was at the time and just move forward. I'd rather put that energy into putting new issues, because that's another thing I've watched people do. You know, they do the first issue 5 times as opposed to just having 5 issues, you know. So it's kind of like a waste of time. However, what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm just tweaking the artwork a bit. You know, it's like really, like, you know, like maybe it's like, okay, there's too much cross hatching here. Let me clean that up. You know, maybe the character faces don't look the way, you know, like I'm drawing them now. You know, because it's like, I don't want the artwork to be the transition to be too jarring when I start actually drawing like issue 6, which is I have the layouts done. I just have to start drawing it. So I know my style's going to be different when I do that, but I don't want it to be so different that people actually get confused as to who's who.
You've recasted. What the
Right? Yeah.
Right,
and what's
right.
funny is that I've seen comics do that. I've seen, you know, and it's like, and it's weird, and it's like, dude, you just could have just tweaked it. But this was back in the 80s, so it's like, it's not like you really that was easy to do at the time. But now it's like, look, I can fix it as I'm working on it. And then it's like there were like certain really, really, you know, gross mistakes that I made back then because, you know, I wasn't really thinking about it. That now it's like I'm looking at some panels like, did I have a stroke drawing this? What happened? Ask me. What are you doing? You know, but at least now I'm able to come back and fix it. So yeah, it's just you know, like just tweaking enough to have a consistency without redrawing anything. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
And Seth says, consistency is a real battle with me too. I always wondered how other artists deal with that, the time between projects and how much your art changes.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, you know, you know, it's like if, you know, Nita, you have, you know, the Tall Tales omnibus. I mean, that first page is completely different from that last page. You know, so I mean, we're talking like 560 pages. Yeah, there's going to be a change in style, you know, no matter what. Yeah.
So, so I did read the first book, you know, and I'm like, where's my copy? I couldn't find it in time because I'm still moving into my house. But so I know this is not a children's book. This is not a children's series.
Yeah.
So, but the art, for some reason, it makes me happy. It brings out the youthful, you know, so I can appreciate that. But, okay, and there is a but here.
Oh, Lord.
When I saw your sketch, the racy one, I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't.
The one I posted to Facebook.
I was just
right?
like, oh my gosh. You know, like,
I was like,
please, she was a virgin.
I mean, yeah, I mean, because this was something that I really that I really fought with when I was putting the book together, because I didn't know how to classify it. And you know, my original idea, I mean, my original idea was like, well, maybe it's a like YA or something, I'm not sure. But then like the more I looked into it, the more it's like, you know what, I don't really want the responsibility of writing, you know, of thinking I'm writing for children. You know, it's like, it's not that type of book, especially the longer it goes. The deeper you get into the story, it, you know, because right now it's like, yeah, it kind of in you know, in spite of certain things, it's kind of, yeah, it looks, it can be mistaken for like being on the fluffy side. But as the story goes along, there's certain things. Yeah, there's certain things that I start exploring, because it's like, one of the things that also I decided to really, really stress is that this is a soap opera, you know, because I think that, and like I said, it took me a while to like really figure that out, you know, like, how am I going to explain this to people? And, you know, and it's like, and I think that there's a certain idea that people have of what a soap opera is and what it contains. And yeah, there comes a point, because the book is about, like, the major themes of the book is pretty much finding out that home and family are not necessarily what you think it is sometimes. And there's a lot of like there's a lot of, you know, relationships that she gets into, that's the heart of the story, as opposed to like something like Tall Tales, where it's like, it's the running, skipping, jumping, climbing Mount Dune adventure, and then maybe you have the interactions kind of interspersed. But this one's the opposite. The adventure is actually background noise. That's just something that's happening. The real story is in her interactions with people and the relationships that she forms. And like you said, with that piece, it's like, yeah, I'm going there too. You know? So yeah, so it's like, yeah, my whole thing, so my whole thing is that even though I have this cartoony style, and it's like, for so, it's like, and unicorns are considered like a children's thing, this is not a children's book. This is the type of story I like reading, it's like, so so I'm entertaining myself first. But the thing is, though, this is a story that I want to share with other adults. I mean, without, it's like, but the thing is that that's the funny thing about the word adult, because people think, oh, it's going to get porny. And it's like, this particular story, not necessarily, but I'm not saying there's not going to be aspects of it in it either, Yeah.
Well, but that's it. With part of being a soap opera, you have that it's more epic than you can possibly put on pages, right?
Yeah.
And so it allows for your characters, the protagonist, the antagonist, everybody to grow and change. So, and so again, when I saw that piece, I don't know if you have it handy, but because we are TVL.
It's like, I do have the
we didn't put it up there yet.
Well, yeah, I do have the censored version on the campaign, because it's a variant cover,
right?
But it's like, that's right, and it's like, and that's an aspect I want to explore. It's like. Yeah, it's like, this is pretty much, it's like, it's a comic book, but this is a story I'm writing to share with other adults, and maybe really precocious, younger people, it's like, because I was a precocious reader. So, so it's like, this was the type of story that I would have like gotten into. And you read a lot of manga, and it's kind of like the same thing too. There's a lot of, so that's what I'm going with this story. The relationships are the crux, and not only that, but it's relationships that get messy. It's like, I'm not writing like, some kind of woo coffee shop AU type of thing where everyone's just giggling at each other. It's like, no, this is, it's funny, because it's like, they're for everything that I'm dying for people to see. It's like, I want to see how they react to certain behavior that I have some characters doing, including Egoraven herself, because it's like, I'm just kind of, I'm playing around, because I'm playing around with the idea that just because someone's a good guy doesn't mean they're always a good guy.
Right.
To steal it from Wreck-It Ralph, it's like, because people are complicated. And sometimes we say things and make decisions that are like, almost, borderline cruel sometimes. And it's like, that's just how we react as people. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, she's an immortal, magical creature in, like, in the mortal world. And this is, and she's like, kind of integrating herself into that world, and how people react and act and all that. And and it gets messy, because life gets messy.
Well, and again, because I read the first one, I could totally relate to Egoraven in a lot of ways. And I did write that in the review, because with, I have Korean relatives, I have the American relatives. And so I personally never fit in either one.
Yeah.
On the Korean side, I was like the fat American relative. On the American side, it was just like, you got the slanty eyes thing going on. It's just, no, it's true. It's true. And it didn't, and it's like, okay, well, you're not exactly white,
Right.
So, and that's not to bring race or anything into this.
No,
but it's to say that for me, my personal experience was a foot in two worlds and not quite fitting in.
Right.
And so my personal journey, and why I relate so much to Egoraven, is because even though I have a foot in both worlds, and it's like, okay, you know, you kind of ping into that one, you ping into that one, but you forge ahead and you make those relationships and you make those families and those decisions. And that's why I think, in a way, I think a lot of people will relate to the
Yeah.
story. They will understand it. And for me personally, and this is not to stroke your ego,
Oh.
Daphne Lage, but I think it's more important. I think it's a more important story that a lot of people should truly try to
Right.
read and understand.
Yeah,
You know, kind of.
this is all for the
Yeah.
black sheeps out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because it's
And
like,
that's why I got it.
yeah, and what's funny is that I've had a lot of people so far who are reading it are telling me the same thing, but they're talking about different aspects too. I mean, it's like, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, and what's, you know, it just pleases me because it's like, I want to, you know, it's like, I'm glad that I'm able to be writing the universal story. Like, I'm not being so specific that it comes off like, oh, it's an agenda or something. I mean, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Right.
But it's like, it's just like, this is the hero's journey, you know, and it's
Mhm.
like, and you know, and we can all, you know, project what we need into that story because these are universal feelings. I mean, it's like, even as the story goes on, that's the crux that I want. It's like, no, it's like, because yeah, there's going to be certain aspect, you know, like other angles sorry, other angles that, yeah, it's like, yeah, we've all been there, we've all felt like that. And it's like a lot of the emotions that a lot of the emotional impact that I'm gunning for is very personal, but at the same time, we've all been there. So that's what, you know, so that's kind of that's kind of what I'm hoping to that people get out of the book. You know, that is because also the funny thing too is that one of the other taglines that I have to bring back, because I think I use it a couple of times and kind of, is that also a part of that whole being in two worlds and not fitting in. One of the other taglines I was using is sometimes it's not about fitting in, but finding out where the weirdos hang out. Which is another theme of the book, you know, that it's like, you know, sometimes, you know, it's not really about assimilation as it is about finding your kin. You know,
Yeah.
regardless of how, you know, how is it, you know, like how disassociated you are from, I guess, like the mainstream, you know, you know, finding your tribe, you know, you're, like I said, it's like, you know, family is sometimes not what you think it is, you know. So yeah, so that's, yeah, so I'm kind of chuffed that people are getting these themes out of my story, because I'm putting, you know, so it's like, okay, so I'm not completely a lousy writer.
So talk to us a little bit about your writing journey then, because, you know, a lot of people, I'm a writer, I'm a prose writer. I've been basically spending the last year trying to script things out, and now my prose is shit. I'm going to admit it. Okay. It's terrible. It's so hard to go back and find my words. But your writing process, and do you have the feels as you're writing?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I am very emotionally involved in my writing. And the funny thing too is that I don't consider myself a writer per se, because all my writing is directly related to Egoraven. I don't write anything else. So, well, except for a couple of fanfics, but you know, that was me, you know, playing around. And that was a funny thing, because it's like I wrote fanfic to kind of like suss out a lot of ideas. That what's funny is that, because, you know, so I sent Nita a fanfic that I wrote because I found the PDF of it. It's like, oh, I thought you'd get a kick out of it. And I ended up rereading it, and I started laughing because there's a lot of stuff that I was sussing out in that fanfic that ends up in Egoraven. So yeah, so it's like I was using fanfic as a way to kind of like figure out stuff. But now what I do, well, so the first story that I did for Egoraven was actually a prose story, which is the prequel that I offer on the Kickstarter. So, and it's a story about how her parents met, and it's, you know, and it's like, that's all prose with some illustrations in it. And, you know, and I really enjoy working in prose because it allows me to add in a lot more detail that I can't. It's not, you can't really do it in a comic book format, because comic books need to be a lot more hyper focused with the story. You can't all of a sudden do like these side things. I'm not Alan Moore, so
we're not have a page of dialogue in a
right. Yeah,
and,
exactly. We can go on these tangents and stuff. You know, it's not. It's, you know. So I put it in prose because I can do that. You know, I can put in more world building in the middle of a story that kind of, you know, that as a comic I would have to like not reference it because there's nowhere to put it, you know, in a comic. But in prose, it just fits right in. So sorry, it's like all of a sudden a hair came, you know, it's like climbing into my mouth here.
Well, you know, I had a moth the one day just like splat right on my eye, and I was just like, ah! Yeah. So you're good.
So prose, I really like, as much as I like the visuals of comics. There's something about writing in prose that really allows me to suss things out. And one of the ways I'm working on this, you know, that I've worked on the stories and is writing little prose vignettes. It's like, okay, I'm trying to figure something out. Let me write a little mini story and see, you know, how I can arrange things and what happens and whatnot. Like, I have a scene in to kind of give away something, but not really. I guess going back to it's not a children's book. So there's a scene in the first issue, because I'm figuring, you know, everyone has it by now, where Rillian and Egoraven talk about getting drunk. And Egoraven can't get drunk. That's just something that she can't do. I guess like the magic keeps her from doing it or whatnot, right? But Rillian does. He likes to get drunk, you know, and one of the games that he likes games is that like him and Egoraven would go into the wine cellar and they would keep drinking until he passes out.
Oh.
You know, now mind you, this is kind of like a throwaway line in the comic. But what I did was I wrote a separate story based on that throwaway line, explaining what exactly is happening. You know, like explaining that idea that it's like that. Yeah, it's like, you know, they go into the cellar, they drink, they keep drinking until he passes out. But it's not just drinking. You know? So it's a whole different story that adds a different angle to their relationship. And that's something that I'm still trying to figure out, like how I'm going to put those stories together, because I want to be able, like, I want people to see these other stories because I think it adds a lot to the character dynamics that I'm building. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's not really feasible as a comic. Right. Especially for the content that it turns into. But I'm still figuring that. But that's what. So I have this complete story explaining a throwaway line in the first issue. So
I love that. Yeah. Those are things that I would be like, oh yeah, I want to see that. I want to see the brains behind that, like what prompted that, because there have been times when I've personally woken up in the middle of the night because of one line,
right? Yeah,
or a title or an image in my head that just plays over and over and over, and you're like, all right, I'm up, you know. I'll do it, and then you go and do it. Right, Let's see. Hey, author Michaela Jade is
hello.
tuning in. Headed to bed, wants to say hi. Caught me on my YouTube channel this morning. So thank you and have a great night, Michaela. Hope that you can tune in and stuff. I think we're having a great interview here, and we're almost at an hour.
Well, let me just just for the prose thing, because it's like conversely, I have some little vignettes that I am turning into comics, because these are like telling little stories that happen in between scenes, but if I had put them in the main story, it would have bogged it down. But I think that they're still, again, like world building or character building stories. So there's one, I have two stories. I have two stories in progress right now. One's a little 12-pager, another is a little 8-pager. And like the 12-pager, this scene happens in between, like around like issue 3 and 4. And I wrote it initially as a prose story, but but then I had to take that story and then convert it to a comic book, the 12 pages. And it was an interesting experiment because of what I had to take out to get these 12 pages. So what I'm thinking of doing, like maybe like for the 4th issue campaign or something, is to offer up both the short story, the actual short story, and the 12 pages that came out of it, just so you can see the difference as to how, like, what's in the story, the prose story that didn't make it into the 12-pager, and I think that that's kind of interesting to show off too, like what's the difference. Awesome. Yeah.
I love that, because it's one of those things where I personally have a bunch of flash fiction stories, and lately, like I said, because this past year I've been focusing on trying to script out things and make my own stories and stuff, that sitting in a room with Nita, it's like, okay, let's take the story and we're just gonna boom, this is the page, this is the page, this is the page, and then breaking it up like that. Do you have kind of a system like that when it comes to your prose?
Let's see, unless I'm writing something very, very specific, like when I was doing the Silk Rose, Legend of the Silk Rose, which is the prequel. That one I remember writing it straight through. Like I had like a very specific story to tell, so that's what I did. And honestly, and just for like transparency, there came a point where I had JD read it, and he actually offered some kind of like character advice that really improved the story for me. So that was also another thing too, getting kind of like that feedback. Mm-hmm. But for the vignettes, it's literally like, okay, I have this scene, let me put it out and then see how it builds up. And then it's like, I just like, okay, so let me write this scene, and then it's like, let me write that scene, or let me do this. And sometimes what happens is that they actually begin to be knitted together. Like it's like, oh, okay, I could put this here, I could put this here. It's kind of like, I think there's like a writing technique where you put things on Post-its or something.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Post-its. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a version of that, where it's like, okay, so I have this scene in my head, let me write out the scene, and then like all of a sudden these other scenes start to interconnect with it, and then I start like, oh, and then before I know it, I have kind of a short story. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of how, it's just it's a little, it's organized chaos kind of, because it's not like deliberate,
right?
Yeah.
So I guess the next question, kind of going into that a little bit more, because you are a writer and an artist, a lot of people, they can't do both.
Right.
So for me, when I'm scripting things out, I'm not looking at it from the mindset or the vision of an artist. I'm looking at it like I can only describe this scene as best as I can and hope that the artist gets it right.
Right. Yeah.
But whereas an artist might see the words and all of a sudden it's just like this technicolor thing, and it's, would you say you're more of a writer brain or an artist brain? I mean, like what takes precedence when you're putting together your story?
Well, you see, the funny thing is I think I'm definitely an artist brain, because the big challenge that I have writing is realizing that I don't have the pictures to carry the weight. You know, so it's like so like that's why even when I do prose, I have put illustrations in, like that's why with that little short story about the throwaway line, you know, I'm like going, oh, I really should, because I really want people to know, like, understand what the characters look like for this to work. So I want the visual there, because I don't I kind of don't trust myself to describe everything enough for people to like see it in their head the way I see it. So yeah, so that's the thing. I'm very visual even when I'm writing the prose. So even though I try to describe things, but also it's like I don't want to get like, you know, like too purple prosy, you know, just describing every little thing. It's like I want, you know, but at the same time, it's like I don't want it to just go he said, she said, and then leave it at that. You know? So yeah, it's trying to find that balance. Is like describing enough, but at the same time, I kind of don't trust myself to describe it enough that I can get away with not having pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must be, as an artist, it must be really kind of difficult too. I mean, have you ever commissioned other people, or is it like, no, it's my baby, nobody else will draw it?
Yeah, it's rare, but that's more of like, you know, because like I commissioned Mary Bellamy to do the My Little Pony cover. I did commission years ago. I commissioned an artist, a manga artist, at a convention to do it's just a little simple headshot. You know, it's kind of hard. As much as I would love to see fan art, it's like or be able to purchase commissioned artwork. At the same time, it's like, oh, do I really want to see other people trying to draw my stuff?
Right, those are my babies. Don't make my babies ugly.
That's what's funny. Someone had posted a thing on Twitter where they said, it's like, you know, have you ever like stand or simped for your OCs, you know, for your own original characters, you know, for, you know, like, have you ever stand or simped for one of your original characters? And I'm like going, just one? You know, it's like,
right.
You know, it's like, you know, because I mean, really, it's like the emotional connection I have with these characters is just tremendous. Like, what's funny is that, I mean, not to, you know, downplay Tall Tales, because I remember feeling like this at the very beginning of the process of drawing Tall Tales, is that like, yeah, it's like, you know, like I would die for these characters, kind of, you know. You know, so yeah, so these characters mean like I literally get like a physical feeling when I'm writing and drawing these characters. It's weird, you know. Like, you know, it's kind of like almost upsetting that they're not real. I mean, it's like, I think like I did something a little unusual the other day where I was trying to figure out heights. So I literally have Post-its all along my wall. Unfortunately, you can't see them from here, but I literally have, but the pictures are on Facebook. They're Post-its marking the heights of most of my main characters on the wall.
Wow.
You know, and it's just really funny because like I'm standing there and I'm looking, and mind you, most of my characters I'm looking up at. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, I made all my characters a lot taller.
They're like 8 feet tall.
You
like,
know,
oh.
Yeah, I do have one that's about like 7 something, you know, and I'm like going, okay up there, you know, it's like, and it's just, I don't know, it's like, and it's just like kind of weird because it adds like a certain reality to it, and it's like, oh, this is Oh, this is where the mental illness kicks in, right?
I mean, somebody might, I don't know, go to a horse farm or something, and
Meredith.
What?
We're not talking about furries.
Well, we could. But you know what? I wanted to take a little bit of a break to say, oh my gosh, the Toe of Satan is going to be happening at CromCon 14, May 30th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Toe of Satan. There will be drool. There will be cussing. There will be raging because we actually hit 100 YouTube subscribers.
Congratulations.
Keep those subscriptions coming. Keep those subscriptions coming.
Yeah.
And because, Nita and I apparently love to torture each other.
Apparently. But 100 subscribers is a tough one. I mean, you think 100 people would be easy, but it's not.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like, okay, so we're supposed you get to 100 and it's supposed to unlock your vanity URL. Yeah. It's not unlocked. I'm like, YouTube. Hello.
I think it takes a little bit because they want to make sure you stay at 100 for a bit before they unlock it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of frustrating, but and I think this was Kentaro Miura. Is that who you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to throw that up there because it was a card that I had created earlier. And I'm so glad that you mentioned him.
Yeah, no, I find it heartbreaking because I just started reading Berserk. I mean, I've heard about it for years. It's like so I got the deluxe edition. I started reading it. I mean, I just finished it. I just told JD to get me the second volume, especially now. Yeah. But I was heartbroken. But then again, it's like, when an artist passes, in the middle of a project, I mean, this is going to be his legacy, this unfinished project, it's like, and it's like, this, and Berserk has been around for so long that it's like, it's kind of like in the background of all our imaginations. And sometimes we don't even know it, like just how many things are inspired by this. Mm-hmm. So I was like upset this morning. Yeah.
Now, how much has manga and I mean that kind of art styling, how has that influenced you?
I think that manga has more it's like manga. It's like tomato. I think it's more the themes, like thematically, it has really influenced me more than rather stylistically, because I certainly wouldn't consider my artwork like manga influenced. I mean, it's more like cartoony influence. Like, I mean, ElfQuest is a major influence for me more than actual like manga, but thematically, storytelling wise, manga and anime are huge influence. Especially now, there's one series in particular that just like guts me every time I see it. It's Violet Evergarden on Netflix. And it's just that show kills me. It's like every time I watch an episode, I just ugly cry through the entire thing. Like, I don't know, like, what is it with that show and the story and the theming. And it's like, wow. It's like, you know what? I can only hope that I get like a fraction of that emotional connection in Egoraven, because it's like, that's kind of like I said, it's like, it's the relationships, it's interacting with people. It's, it's reacting to the world that you're in, and not quite understanding why people act the way they do, and finding yourself kind of acting weird too in relation to that, and not understanding why. And it's mostly the themes, because it's like, they're not afraid to do entire books about this stuff. Not everybody, it's like, I guess to kind of like hint on what's to come. It's like, it's like, how many fist fights have anyone really been in, you know? And it's like, but you have conversations all the time, and it's like, you know, people fall in love, and what happens when you find yourself falling in love with multiple people, you know? So it's like, you know, how do you, you know, like what's that story like? You know,
Right.
I mean, it's like, you know, after a while, it's like I'm not really interested in a fist fight.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. You
You
know.
know, the dialogue and the connection, and
Yeah.
that's it. It's like when you are emotionally invested as
Yeah.
a writer, you know, and you're kind of pouring that out on the page. It's I think that's important because you can throw words on a page.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
But that storytelling, that
Mhm.
connection to
Yeah.
it so that you are feeling it as you're writing it, and then you are hoping that other people are picking up on
Yeah.
that emotional investment, I think is very important.
Right, because that's why when you mentioned that you're getting what you did out of the
Mhm.
story, and I've gotten people tell me it's like, yeah, they're getting the same thing but from different angles.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's like, oh, I'm close.
Yeah.
I'm close.
Yeah. And that's the dream, I think, as a
Yeah.
creator
Yeah.
for your content, to have
Mhm.
that emotional connection to
Yeah.
other people where you can sit there and go, oh man, I ugly cried because of that. You
Right,
know?
yeah, or it's like you got like really angry because of it. Like
Right.
there's a certain scene I am just like dying to get to, that it's such an for me an emotional gut punch, that it's like I'm dying to see if people get the same reaction
Mhm.
from that scene as I do every time I see it. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
Now, have you ever been like so angry that you were like, nope, nope, I'm walking away from my desk right now.
Because it's like, oh, I can't believe, you know, you're acting like this. It's like, well, but
Right.
that's how it has to go, you know. It's like,
And you're like, wait a
yeah,
minute, I really don't have control over this story.
you know, yeah. It's like there's certain. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's like, you know, people say how it's like the characters reveal themselves, and then it's like, and then you have the other. It's like, no, you're writing the characters. You know, it's like you're not, you know. These aren't, you know, like you're not being controlled by gremlins. It's like, right, you know, hey, yeah, that's what I'm hoping. But the thing is, though, there are certain things that, you know, like I reread the script, you know, oh no, I've made like really minor changes as you know, because I think I finished the script in September of last year, I think. But like since then, I've constantly revisited and made some major, you know, like not major changes in terms of like scene tone, and I've added certain scenes in it too that's added to the story, and it's like it's just you know, it's kind of like I put in a new scene and I'm like, oh my god, this is perfect. You know, that it like it didn't make it in when I finished it, but it made it in now, and it's like, and it just changes like there's a literal change to the last line of the story, that all I did was change a word, and it completely changed the tone of the story, that almost started crying again.
Mhm.
I cried when I finished the story, and now I almost cried again because of that one word change, and it
Wow.
just changed everything. And I'm like going, oh my god, you know, it's like, I gotta take a break.
Mhm.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, I totally know that feeling. So for anybody who is tuning in, this is our special guest, Daphne Lage. She has got Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, 1 and 2 available on Kickstarter. If you are looking at our show notes, you will see that you've got links to Daphne Lage's social media as well as her Kickstarter. Make sure that you go over there. If you've already supported it, thank you. Make sure you hit the share button over and over again because she's got 12 more days to go and we want a strong finish.
Yeah. I
And
might do a like a live stream at the end of it, you know, so we can see how it ends.
and some more sketches and some
Right,
more
yeah,
art
yeah.
and things
Uh-huh.
like that. There was somebody here Hey, Marvelous. Thank you for tuning in. We
Hi.
appreciate you guys for tuning in. There was something that I think Pops had said, like I needed an adult after
No, that
I
was
saw
Jody
your
McPhee.
Oh, was it? After I saw
Yeah.
your sketch. No, okay, so the funny story is this, okay? So I have a baby sister. She's like 6 years younger than I am. Okay. And at the time she had been dating the same guy for the longest time. They were married and everything. And then one day she comes up to me and she says, "I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're having sex?" So
Yeah.
I know it's ridiculous. But when I saw that, it was almost like that moment because, like I said, I related to her so much. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing her and she's all like, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean she's grown up?
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, it's, I guess to put it crudely, yeah, my character's fuck.
Yeah. They're grown up. This is
Yeah.
not for children.
Yeah, that was something too, because it's like I also even played with their ages, like in case anybody asks me, it's like, even though these are all just lines on paper and they're not real people, as much as it breaks my heart that they're not. Yeah, it's like I kind of had to like really, really tweak a lot to really like push the idea that, yeah, I'm not writing this for kids. I'm an adult sharing a story for other adults, and my characters do adult things. And it's like, and it's like, I mean, it's like, look, it's not like the book is going to get porny, but I'm not going to shy away from that aspect either. I mean, that's it, it's, I don't know. What's funny is that it's like, I keep seeing this discourse about like, oh, like no story needs sex scenes, it's unnecessary, blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, an entire story is unnecessary. And it's like, and this is just another aspect of the human experience where we bond with each other that way, and it's like, and why shouldn't my characters also bond that way? In fact, it's kind of a plot point. So, or it becomes kind of a plot point. So, again, not to be spoilery, but to kind of give an idea, people an idea as to what's coming. So,
I saw what you did there.
Yeah,
Wow,
exactly.
Daphne.
So the thing, yeah. So it's a plot point, because it's like, if people say, oh, if it doesn't push the plot forward, well, yeah, this does. It's important to the plot. Hey, sugar, and and I'm not going to shy away from that. I mean, it's like, and I think that has a lot to do with when I originally was reading ElfQuest, and in the 4th volume of the first series, there's an orgy scene, and I remember Wendy Peeney getting a lot of shit for that scene. And the thing is, though, it's not like she went all hustler with it, and it's like, it's a very beautiful scene, and it's very in context to what's going on in the story. And and it's like, and also people got uncomfortable because it's like there's a lot of character swapping and stuff like that, and but the thing is, though, it's like, but this is something that it's part of the story, and yeah, it's just, I don't want to shy away from it, and I don't want to feel pressured to shy away from it. It's like I said, I did that prose story, which, yeah, it goes into more detail. I mean, it's like, just to put it bluntly, it's an erotic story based on one throwaway line. I just have to figure out what to do with it, but I don't want to shy away from that, and it's important to me. And I don't want to pretend it's not.
It's important to the character development, that you don't shy away. And I think that's why people will connect to the story, because there's a certain amount of realism without bonking you on the head with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's like, it's not porn coming up, but I'm not shying away from it either.
It's kind of merging your worlds a little bit. you know, because I mean, and I don't know if you want to talk about House of Bob, you know, because we're going to keep this at 90 minutes because, you know, time,
whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of in a way merging those worlds a little bit.
Well, well, that would imply they were separate to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like I said, it's like this has always been an aspect of my stories. I mean, even the fanfic that I sent Nita.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, even the fanfic, that's an aspect of it. You know, it's like that's always been there. I mean, it's like House of Bob is more of like an extreme version of it. I mean, it's like for those to explain to the audience, House of Bob is my very specific collection of furry pornography. It's mostly fetish based. You can find it. You can find a link to it on my website, but it heads over to my Fur Affinity account that you have to be over 18 to register. So it's not like you can, you know, it's all out there, you know, because it's like I want to also respect the people coming to my website, you know, who, it's like even me, I don't want to surprise porn, you know, it's like I don't want that in my face either.
Again, it's like doesn't have to be in my face,
right? Yeah,
don't have to be bonked on the head with it either,
right? Exactly. You know, and it's like you know, and you know, so it's there, you know, for people who want to see it. And that one, and that's just more like, you know, commissions, and it's more of a furry fandom thing that I really started doing. And it's like, yeah, and it's like that's just something else that I do. You know,
well,
like,
I think for me, you know, like having your House of Bob sketchbook, right, and then seeing this, and then again, you know, for me, it's like seeing Egoraven. You know, I mean, that to me was just powerful. Again, I had that moment like, oh my gosh. And it's not because I'm a prude or anything like that.
Right.
No,
You weren't expecting it from that character.
It was something that I was just like, oh, you know, she's sweet. Is this coming of age? It's like, oh my gosh, no, she's a young lady. You know?
Yeah.
And it was just that realization and stuff like that. But again, it was powerful. And in a way, I was getting to something with this, kind of because you've kind of dealt with the fandom and stuff like that. I think perhaps you've had more comfortability with this kind of area, whereas most people who might not be comfortable doing that might throw in a scene because it's maybe gratuitous. Maybe it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's gonna sell because there's sex in it, you know?
Right, yeah, that's
and
this where
right, and this feels more like, yeah, I've been drinking since I was whatever, so when I hit 21, it wasn't a big deal. You know,
right? Yeah,
you know that feeling that I'm talking about. So that's kind of like the sense I get in a way.
Yeah, I mean, because I know, because it's like, you know, I'm used to it. So drawing that piece wasn't a big deal to me. That's why the reaction to it surprised me, because then I had to remember that it's like, oh, I'm only up to the second issue.
Right.
Technically, you've all only read the first issue. It doesn't really reveal. I mean, it reveals enough, but not enough. And it's like, there's, you know, the story really goes certain ways, but I was, you know, so I was surprised by that, because to me it was just like normal, because I'm over. Oh, and by the way, I just remembered something, because you said had I ever done, like, written something that just made me go, oh, I can't, you know, it's like, you know, I'm done. So there is a short story that I wrote that it's another, hey Jake, it's another, you know, Egoraven Rillian story, you know, that happens earlier. And it's, and the funny thing is that I wrote
Spill it, Lage, spill it.
I wrote it. I wrote it. And then afterwards, it was like, I actually felt uncomfortable with the story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's there. I would, but the thing is though, it reveals a very important character aspect, especially for Rillian, that for the elf prince,
Mhm.
and with his relationship with Egoraven, and it reveals something, and it predates the story that I was talking to you about before. It predates it by a couple of years. And I mean, what's funny is that the name of the story is Creep. And that's literally the feeling I got afterwards. Like, I was just writing it, not really thinking about it. I mean, it just like came out. And then after I was done with it, I'm like going, I just grossed myself out.
I need to read this. I need it in my life.
It's a character story, but also like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, so it's kind of upsetting, the story. So yeah, it was kind of, so yeah, so even now it's like I see the file, it's like right there, and it's like, oh, I really should look that story over again, but I really don't want to go through that mood.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's so important. If you could speak to knowing the backstory, knowing the ugly, and knowing the really sweet of a character when you're creating that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Can you clarify that?
Okay, so you have this story that you're like, I don't like that.
Right.
How does that influence you drawing him now?
Actually, it doesn't,
because it's stuck in your head. You can't unsee it.
No. Well, you see, but the thing is though, that was always an aspect I knew he had. So it's not like it changes the character. I'm just finally putting out something about his character on paper, but it's done in a way that's rather unsavory, especially, it's a rather, pretty much, it's a story about how he gets off on humiliating Egoraven. And literally. So so like I said, the story's named Creep for a reason, because that's what he always was. And what's funny is that the seed for that story started with another story about one of her cousins, her unicorn cousins, talking about Rillian, and pretty much saying that he was a creep, and it was a line that she says, it's like, well, he was a creep even for elfin standards. Especially what they would do is that they would kidnap people and pretty much, I mean, to put it really bluntly, the elves kept a rape farm, for these captured humans. So it's like,
right.
So yeah, it's kind of weird. And even the unicorn is saying, yeah, and he was a creep, even to those standards, and then from that story I wrote this one, and I'm like going, oh yeah, he's a creep. He's a creep. He definitely is a creep. But what's funny is that the issue that I have with it really is not writing the story, but showing it, how are people, because I would have to say it's a triggery story. So I'm sitting there going, what am I going to do with this story? How it's like, this is a really upsetting story. If other people read it, it's like,
right.
What,
right.
So yeah, so that's kind of, that story. Yeah, I still kind of have a visceral reaction to it just thinking about it.
Right. Yeah. And finding that balance between the words and making sure that, because you want a balance between the art and the words. You don't want one so overpowering the other that it loses it, that you lose people or their attention, or is so shocking. Again, it's like that bonk on the head, it's like you don't need that. You want them immersed and you want them invested in the story. And as a reader of that kind of content, when you when you see something and you read something that feels like that gut punch too, and you're like, oh my God, what a douche.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That as a writer is gold.
That's why I don't want to waste it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's like I was saying, it's like I hope that my stories have an emotional reaction. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if people are gonna like this one, because yeah, it's, you know, because also we're talking about like, you know, there's okay, so yeah, also that like there's like a major age difference in the story, because Rillian is like around like 100 and something, you know, because he's an immortal, and Egoraven at the time of the story is like around like 15, and you know, so it's like, oh, you know, it's like I said, it kind of makes me choke thinking about
right,
you know, because it's like, oh my God, why did I write this? But again, it was a character study that I felt was important to get out. But what am I going to do with this story?
I think that's amazing, and I cannot wait to see it. Yeah. Hey, you guys, so if you are tuning in, make sure that you go over to Kickstarter, Egoraven, Heir of the First Unicorn, 1 and 2 available. There's 12 days left to go. Make sure that you hit the share button if you can't support it. And we have all of the links in the show description. So if you are watching from YouTube or Facebook, take a look underneath the video and you will see all the links that you can follow Daphne. It goes to her Kickstarter as well as EgoWorks and some of her social media. So Daphne, we're going to close up shop tonight. No. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with our RAGIN audience?
Well, if you go to the Kickstarter, I did like an update this morning where I actually have I'm doing a print crossover with Rob Mutari's Nightwolf. And if you support both our campaigns between now and June 2nd, when my campaign ends, you get an exclusive crossover Nightwolf Egoraven crossover print from the Nightwolf campaign. And it's on my Kickstarter. You see it there. It's on my website at egoworks.com. So yeah, so yeah, if you're into really collecting you know, collecting my artwork and you love werewolves and, you know, yeah, this is actually, I have my, this is my color proof when I was coloring it. So that's
Let's
the print.
Put you on the big screen.
Yeah.
There you are.
So this is the print. I mean, this is not the actual print, but this is the image that you get. I think the print is like 5x7. And this is the crossover print. So if you support both our campaigns, you get this print from the Nightwolf campaign.
Nice.
So, yeah.
All right, who do we have to shake down? Because I know Nightwolf launched, was it yesterday?
Yesterday. It launched yesterday. It's halfway to goal right now. So it's Rob Mutari at Lone Wolf Comics that you need to shake down.
Yeah, okay. All right, because, you know, I know Nita and I
got it, JOG.
What's also cool is that I did on his last campaign, I did a print for him for his trade paperback that's going to appear in the trade paperback. And I sent him the original, which was funny because I asked him, so do you want the original? And he goes, what do you mean there's an original? Because he's so used to getting everything as you know, digital files. It's like all his work is all digital. And so I was the only one who did a physical piece. And he goes, oh, it's like, yeah, send it to me. So it's like, so he offered up that original that I did on his Kickstarter and someone snapped it up.
Wow.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. You know what? I'm going to put the card up here. Where are you, Daphne? There you are. Look at that. Daphne Lage on Kickstarter. Follow her everywhere. Just don't peek in her windows. I don't know. She might want. Nah, well, you don't want to do
House
that.
of Bob. You can go to my House of Bob site. You can peek you can peek in the windows there.
Yeah, you know, the Fur Affinity site is on in the show description too, if you guys are feeling a little frisky. But Daphne Lage, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. It was fun. I could have gone on longer.
We probably could too, but we're trying to be good. You guys have a great evening. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow, share, be kind, be productive, stay safe, and have a great night. Thank you guys for tuning
Good
in.
night.